Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to join us. Excited to share with you. We do these weekly, our platform demo and overviews. My name is Mark Smith. I'm the Director of Solutions Engineering here at Cloud Academy in the US. I work with our customers in a pre-sales role, but even after implementation to really align on where they're at in their digital transformation, helping them position our platform in such a way that can meet whatever business outcomes they're looking to achieve in and through an effective training program. I'm going to share some details of that with you today. So we're going to go through a demo. I'll open this up for Q&A. So if we do have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those when they come through. Feel free to type those into the comment or chat box, and I'll take those when it's time. But without further ado, I want to actually get in now to an actual demo. And so I'm going to go into our demo environment here. So a couple of things that I want to mention beforehand. So we have identified in the way that we built the Cloud Academy platform in such a way that it's a continuous cycle. So we start with assessments. Then based on the assessments, we begin to develop a training program. And then along the way, it's constantly validated through a couple of different ways, which I'll show you. That's important because if any of those pieces are actively missing, what we have seen and what our top customers have told us is that ultimately these are likely to fail the training programs. So what I'm showing you today is kind of the end solution of Cloud Academy and really what in the practical ways that our customers are using it today. So the first thing that I want to start off with here is talking about this concept of what we call teams. Ultimately, what this is you're grouping people together in a journey. So this could be aligned to several different things. It could be certifications, it could be job roles, it could be reflective of your organizational structure, and then break it down, as you need to. But ultimately, you're putting people together with similar skill sets, but more importantly, the same skill objective. What they're going to do is go through a journey together when it comes to training. Now, ultimately, what happens is you can assign someone as a team manager, and this is going to allow that person to assign out assessments, to actually assign training plans, and make sure the team is being accountable throughout when it comes to finalizing and completing their training plans. After you have set up your teams, our CS team will work to, our customer success managers will work to implement an actual assessment for you. Again, the assessment is geared to help you get an accurate baseline of the skills that exist, but more importantly, what skill gaps are there. And then you take those and align it with whatever the outcome you're looking to achieve, and we'll start to develop a program to help to tackle those skill gaps head on. A couple of things that I'll note here is that you're able to see how all the individuals scored. If indeed there was someone who was an outlier, either more advanced or in a more likely scenario, someone that's a little further behind, it doesn't mean they can't be on the same path, but you may need to put something a little more fundamental in front of that person so they could catch up with everyone else. You get a result back. So I did one here in multi-cloud. You can do these and customize them if you want. So across all the cloud platforms, any container technology, I'll show you a little bit about what out-of-the-box assessments we have. But it's going to give you an idea of some of the strengths or where the people are actually, ranking when it comes to some of these core domains within each of the cloud platforms, and then ultimately where their comfortability or skill profile level is with overall understanding of those platforms as a whole. This is formulating a baseline skill profile, which is going to live with that individual, and then it rolls up into the team and overall the organization. And that's just a real-time reflection of the validated skills that are accrued over the platform in and through this baseline skill assessment, all the exams and quizzes they take, and the hands-on labs that are validated, which I'll show you more of here in a moment. When you get back into the assessments, just a couple that we have available. So these are some of the out-of-the-box assessments, more text-based up here. Again, these can all be customized, but then you also have lab-based assessments. So this is a great way to put these challenges in front of someone to assess their practitioner-level skills and getting into a hands-on lab with no guidance and seeing how well they can execute on what's incorporated in that specific challenge. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about those in a moment. After you have gotten the results of the assessments, I mentioned the customer success team. They'll actually look with you at the results of that assessment and help you align on where you want to go from there. So if I go back to this team that we were looking at before, and I'll show you what we're going to do is now start to assign out a training plan. A training plan is the mechanism to assign out specific training to a team so they can work at it together with a due date. So this is an accountability factor that's largely missing in online training and has been extremely beneficial for our customers in helping execute and at any given time have some predictability around where their teams are going to be at any given moment of time. So what we'll do is start a new training plan. We've got some that are out of the box and you can build your own. So you can come up here and create custom training plans. So just start here with the architect for Azure. What you'll see is that you can actually start to adjust the due date for these. So you know your people, you know how important the due date is, but you know how much work they have going on. Ultimately, we're going to allow you the flexibility to come in here and adjust that time frame, or you can actually come down here and pick a due date. So if I pick end of January, it's going to tell me the amount of time per week that my team would have to devote to being able to stay on track with this training plan and how long it would take to complete it. After I review, confirm, and assign, every member of that team is going to be notified that that training plan is assigned. They'll get notice when the due date is. They're going to get weekly reminders. So at minimum once a week, they're going to be reminded to go in and make sure they're working on their training plan. But the manager is going to get a consolidated view as well. And one of the great things about this, I talked about predictability, is that you don't just have to stop here. We allow you to actually sequence these. So if I wanted to take that team and then have them put more of a focus on the security aspect of it afterwards, again, I could come and adjust the due date. But what happens now is that training plan is sequenced in line. So anyone that is flowing through this initial training plan and is kind of working seamlessly through it and maybe finishes ahead of time, they can go into the next training plan automatically and start to work on that. So you'll be able to see for this team and the skills that are growing over time and be able to accurately say, my team is here, but I anticipate by the end of March or whatever that may be, that we're going to have these skills able to execute on whatever this deliverable is or milestone that's important to your upper level management. You can assign these training plans to individuals as well. So it doesn't just have to be at the team level. You can assign them to the individual. Now, once the training plan is assigned, you actually start to have all the analytics and insight into what's actually going on. The first thing that we'll look at here are just the analytics, which are the consumption-based model or consumption-based measurement, showing you the amount of time spent. We break this down a different way than what you may have seen by learning activities. So it could be the learning paths, which I'll talk about soon, all the labs, exams, etc. And you can look at those individual aspects. So if I wanted to look at the exams, and there's a certification initiative that is important to us, and I want to see how well my team is actually doing on that, I can actually go in and look specifically at that specific exam. So this one aligned to the AZ500, see how all the individuals are doing, how many times they started, completed it, passed it, and what their last score was. So if you are going through certification initiatives, which we do a lot of these, I work with a lot of consulting firms doing large-scale certification initiatives. So they're running through these and they're using analytics to actually kind of measure where everyone is at and see if they're equipped to go and actually pass that certification. So this is extremely beneficial. Now, one of the other important aspects, and really the more important one when it comes to actually verifying the efficacy of a training platform or a training program, is to what skills are actually validated over time. I mentioned this before, but that's what we call skill profiles. These are completely unique to Cloud Academy in the way that we do these. I mentioned that it starts with the baseline skill assessment, and then it continues to build over time. And this is being fed not only by that initial assessment, but all the quizzes, the exams, which I'll show you an exam in a moment, and the hands-on labs that are validated. So this is just not, I watched a course, so I must have the skill, but I've actually gone through and demonstrated a level of practitioner level skills that I can actually put and be able to have a tangible result on how effective this training program was. So you'll see we have all the different platforms, the different domains, concepts, software. So this is everything on Cloud Academy. And what's happening and what we're seeing with our customers that we're working with is they want to start to isolate on the areas that are important. So if we're going through a large scale migration to AWS, we looked at on that initial assessment some of the baseline or core domains, I should say. There's the exhaustive list. So what I've done is I have isolated AWS, and this is only putting the training that my team has done, all the quizzes, exams, and labs done for AWS, my organization, I should say. So now I can look at our areas of proficiency, the different domains, but I can also have an insight into the top users, meaning they have shown the most demonstrable or validation of skills on the platform through that work that they've done. And I can start to look at the teams too. Again, this is overall practitioner level skills within AWS. Now I can come in and isolate any of these domains. So security being top of mind, what happens is I've isolated all the training within the security domain, including all the services that fall under there. And I can actually go and get that same level of insight for those users have shown the most demonstrable skills within that specific domain, as well as the teams too. So very effective for picking teams to lead projects, helping or having individuals or teams who are going to be responsible for kind of building out the architecture, which services are going to be most important to you and your organization, working on consulting engagements, a ton of ways that our customers are using this, but highly, highly effective when it comes to relaying a return on investment when it comes to the skills that are acquired within a training program. I'm going to come back to Content Engine in a moment, but what I want to do now is take a look at how this looks from an individual perspective, so your end users who are going into the platform. We started out as an end user platform, so people coming in to actually go and take certifications, they're testing on that content, working with the labs, and then what we did is we pivoted to help build an enterprise product around an exceptional end user experience. So nothing that I've shown you has affected the end user as far as the how they use the platform and how well it actually is positioned for them. So I just want to give you an idea of what that looks like. This is the dashboard. So any training plan that individual has been assigned on the team, they're going to see here. You'll also notice they can create their own training plans. So if a manager doesn't assign a training plan to that individual or to their team, they can assign their own, which could be inclusive of whatever they want it to be. Could be any of the certifications or job roles, whatever we have, they can assign that to themselves with a due date, and that'll give that same level of accountability for them at the individual level. They'll see any assessments that are assigned, and then ultimately there's a AI component built in the platform. Anything that they've started to work on and they want to continue will show up here. But it's also learning a little bit about what interests them. So based on their behavioral patterns, it will make some top picks because you completed, kind of like Netflix here. So again, some ways to help drive engagement. And then we do update our content regularly. An entire quarter of our content team's time is spent to updating existing content. So they'll be able to see new content that's added or updated content added over the last 30 days here as well. The actual end user themselves have access to their own skill profile score. This is extremely important because it's empowering that individual to take control of their profile. So I can actually go in and look at what's important to me and my role and help build out my profile to make me a more well-rounded practitioner in the organization. So I can see some of my areas of strength, some areas of opportunity, and I begin to prove skill in those areas or browse training so I can start to build up the skill profile score in those areas. Bouncing into the training library now. So we are focused on cloud and emerging tech. What that means is that in addition to AWS, Azure, GCP, we've even added Alibaba, is we're going to be focused on the tech that surrounds that too. So containers, DevOps, machine learning, you see here, programming, security. So there's a lot of content that might not necessarily be what you would consider cloud content, but it's actually structured around those emerging tech that support it. We do have it organized by the top 3 categories, meaning or top 3 cloud platforms here. So you'll have all the training relevant to that. And then you can get into some of those specific domains. Down here, you can see some custom nodes when you create custom content and Content Engine, which I'll show you in a moment. You can actually house those to live in the library too. So keeping up with the AWS theme here, since reInvent is going on this week, wish that I could be in Las Vegas for that. That's always a good time. I'm sure a lot of people are wishing the same. Ultimately, you can get a look at all the training that's there for AWS. Now, I talked about learning paths, and I want to show you exactly what that means. So learning paths are a very guided approach. So it takes the guesswork out. Instead of having people bounce from course to course, lab to lab, quiz, exam, etc., This is a very guided approach, pointing them to a holistic solution where they can go through it at any given time in these steps. And what this is, the learning path is a culmination of courses, hands-on labs. We have some custom resources, as well as quizzes and exams. So we call this a learn, do, and validate model, meaning that not only are they actually going in and watching courses, seeing an instructor go through demos and things like that, but they're getting a chance to put it in practice. And then they have an exam at the end, which is going to test them on everything that they've learned too. So let's look at some of these in detail. Sorry for going a little fast there, hopefully not getting people dizzy. So let's just take a look at a course here. Stuart Scott, pretty popular guy. He's gets a lot of great feedback. He's an AWS guru, so he goes through and does a lot of our, he's our content lead for AWS. We got a great team there, so they're constantly going to see them popping up on the screen here. He's ultimately built a ton of content here in Cloud Academy, and the way that this is delivered, this is the course, so it's ultimately a lot of PowerPoint based. You may see them pop up on the screen, in a green screen scenario. They'll be going through demos, but a ton of way that these are going to be delivered. You'll actually see that they're broken apart into lectures. So this was, if I'm not mistaken, a 54-minute long course. So instead of actually making that an elongated, almost hour-long video, what our team does is break these apart into lectures. Now, this is good for two reasons. One, if you're like me, it's hard to sit down for 54 minutes is one thing, but I mean, even 10, 15 minutes staying focused for that long is difficult, considering all the things that we have going on nowadays and being at home largely. But if we break it apart into modules, it's going to actually give your users a chance to build up some momentum, knock out a few of these modules, stay current on their training plan. But as a side benefit, these are indexable and searchable. So when it comes to wanting to look for specific content around Snowball or S3, when they put that in the search functionality, it will pull up all the courses and lectures, labs, etc., that are tied to that too. Let me go into a lab now. So our lab environments are completely 100% sandboxed and managed by us. There is no additional cost in our enterprise functionality. These are all included with the subscription. They're going to be based in AWS, Azure, GCP. We've got guided labs, lab challenges. We've got playground labs, and then we even have some that are focused on command line interface. So for people really wanting to work in the CLI, with Java, Python, R, Go, whatever that may be, there's tons of CLI-based labs too. This is one of our guided labs, so I'm going to take a moment here to show you what this UI actually looks like and talk about some of the benefits of the way that we actually structure these. So give this a second to start. There's a lab running in the background there. What's going to happen is this is going to take me, it's building my login credentials. Ultimately, what I'm able to do here is go in and open up the AWS environment. I've got a username and a password. It's going to pop open a second tab for me. You can do these a couple of different ways. If you want to have split screens, you can do that. If you want to just go back and forth on the tabs, that's fine too. I have dual monitors, which is an effective way for me. But again, works however you want it to. It's available to work that way. You'll see we're live under a student account. And now I go back to the lab. So this is a guided one. I was talking about that. You'll notice that it's taking me through how to log in. When you're looking at these, a couple of things that I want to point to. These guided labs are extremely beneficial for making sure people can go through, do these multiple times before actually going into one of those challenge environments where there's no guidance. But ultimately, if you're looking at these, they're text-based as well. And what that means and why that's important is because anybody that's been doing this for a little while knows that these UIs change. And could be some subtle updates. It may not affect your ability to get through the lab, but we want to make sure that this is an experience that really models what it looks like when you go into the console. So by being text-based, we're able to go in and update these really frequently and really easily when it comes to either feedback from our customers or things that we know that need to be updated. And another differentiator here is that there's validation steps built into these. So instead of just being able to click through and show that I completed it, we've got validation checks built into the steps. Now, it's going to go back and check that what I was supposed to do here in creating this EC2 instance was actually done in my lab instance. If I've completed that, it'll pass through and I can go to the next step until ultimately I finalize this. and submit it. It validates the entire thing, and that would feed into my skill profile. You can go through and do these as many times as you want. So that's unlimited access to these. We're actually building out functionality too. So you'll notice some of these have timers, which are a way for us to keep our costs down on these to make it available. I will say this lab on average takes about 15 or 20 minutes. So we're giving an hour for you to go in and complete that, which is more than enough time. But being that everyone's at home, we're actually going to implement what we call a lab resume function, where you can pause the state of this lab for a couple hours and be able to come back and pick it up again without starting over. That's scheduled to be released here in the beginning of the year. So this is a guided lab, and meaning there's the steps walking you through it. When we're talking about a challenge scenario, which you saw in the assessments, what that means is that I've got to get through and do this same lab, but I don't have the screenshots. So an analogy you could use here, kind of taking the training wheels off, or you're not having the answer key, so to speak. So you've got to go through and show that you can do this without the guidance, which is wonderful for being able to see how well positioned. And again, this is a way that our customers are using it. They're creating these environments that mirror what it looks like in their stack. Having people go in and do these in a challenge scenario, show that they're capable of doing it in a safe sandboxed environments before they're released and turned over into production. So this is an extremely beneficial way of learning. And the last piece that I wanted to talk about was the exam. Now, this is a certification-based exam, or a certification-based learning path, I should say. Know that we've got learning paths built on job roles, upskilling, whatever that may be. This is just one tied to a certification. This is a more condensed learning path for the cert. So there's one exam, and some of these learning paths you may see there could be 2, 3, 4, 5 different exams, kind of testing you at multiple points along the way to see how well you're comprehending it. But I just wanted to show you what this UI looks like. So we'll go in and start the assessment. This is going to mirror a live exam environment. So it's got the same amount of time you would go if you were sitting for the Solutions Architect Associate. I'm going to go through and answer some of these questions. You'll see they look like you would see when you go and sit for an exam. So mirroring that exam environment, the choose 2, choose 3, which of the following is not. A couple of other things that I'll make mention of is we give you the ability to skip. So even at the assessment stage, like the initial assessment, we don't want you to answer it and guess. It's going to assume knowledge if you get it right that you don't have, and that's not beneficial for anyone. So I'll tell you why that's important. We're going to tell you what you get wrong anyway and give you the answers, but it's very important to skip it if you don't know it. It doesn't impact your skill profile, but it will just affect the exam score. This is a certification-based path, so not as applicable here. There is some of this built in. But we use what's called item response theory. Our data scientists, our Inspire team, spent a ton of time putting in effort to making sure that the questions in here, the difficulty levels that are assigned, how it's feeding into those different skill profiles, it's building in an ability. So if you answer 5 beginner level questions correctly in a row, and I'm just using a number for sake of example here, if you answer 5 correctly in a row, it would adjust the difficulty to the next level, intermediate for that question. If you get it right, maybe it asks you another one. If you get it wrong, it will revert back to that beginner level. So that skill profile score is constantly being pinged in and through the exams and the labs to make sure that when you're looking at this for your personnel, you can be confident that what that score says is indicative of what they're able to actually do. We'll go ahead and submit this. I could go back and answer these if I wanted to. I'm not going to make you guys watch me fill out every one of those. You'll get your results. And then this is what the UI looks like on the report back, which has been so valuable, really on the certification programs that we've run, extremely valuable for that. But when it comes to building out the teams and making sure that they're possessing the skills that are relevant to our organization, this is the type of feedback that the individual gets. So if they answer a question on S3 or Glacier correctly, that's going to assume knowledge in those services, which then assumes knowledge within the AWS storage domain, then their overall AWS skill profile score, and then your overall Cloud Academy score. So that's kind of the way this builds. You'll notice that you can improve score in these areas. So if I did poorly on one of these and I want to go immediately improve my score with a quiz, I can do that. Or I can browse training to look at specific things that would help me kind of gain some more knowledge before I go and take those quizzes. Again, this is super beneficial for certifications, but even for job roles and things like that, to help people understand where they're at, where they may have went wrong. We're pulling from a large database of these questions, so we're giving you the answers to the ones that you got wrong. We're going to give you an explanation along with giving you the correct answer, and we'll even point you to some official, in some cases, AWS documentation or Microsoft if it's Azure or GCP, wherever whatever the relevant cloud platform may be. And we'll even point you to some modules within Cloud Academy too to help you out. I told you to skip them if you don't know them. We're going to give you the answers to those as well, give you the same amount of explanation and documentation, and even the ones that you got correct. So again, we want to make sure that once you come out of this exam, that you feel comfortable with the next time you take it, so that you can go through and see a different variation of the questions. Since there is a large pool, one thing that I'll make mention of is best practices to go through and do these multiple times, especially for certification initiatives. But what happens is, because they're pulling from such a large database, is that if you get it wrong, it increases the chances that you'll see it again. If you get it right, it doesn't mean you're not going to see it on the next iteration, but it reduces those chances. So we've often heard people going through 6-7 times of these exams before they start seeing some of the more repetitive questions, which is phenomenal. All right, I am going to now pivot back over to our management console, and we're going to go to Content Engine. So Content Engine is extremely unique to Cloud Academy. So we've got a robust content library, existing content that's there. I like to refer this as the icing on the cake, or the kind of bow that wraps all this together. But ultimately, all the stuff that I've shown you can be customized and put into a way that now I can not only train people on Kubernetes, but I can train them on how we use Kubernetes in our environment. And that goes the same for any of the technologies that we have in there. And there's a couple of ways that you can do this. So I'll kind of use a couple of simplified examples and show you a few more things here. When we talk about custom resources, these are static files. So they can actually, you can upload SCORM files here. You can do any type of MP4, PowerPoints, PDFs, whatever that may be, you can upload them. So a simplified example that I tend to use, and I've seen done in the past, is maybe you have a 10-page document built around security policies at your organization that you onboard all of your people with to make sure they understand that. You can have them read through it in a custom resource and then actually go and build questions, different variations of difficulty level if you want, tie those into an exam, and you can actually create custom skills that align to that. So this is a really, really beneficial way to make sure not only that they read it, but that they understood it, and they're able to demonstrate that when it comes to an exam format. Our labs can be completely customized as well. So if I wanted to go in and customize a lab for Microsoft Azure, we're going to allow you to create a lab from scratch with all your own scripts, or you can actually clone one of ours. So this is the same backend that our content team is using as well when they're developing these. But when you clone something, what it's doing is building that out in its entirety. You can change the title here, make it more relevant to you. And then you've got your steps. So every one of those steps you saw on the left-hand side on the front end, that's what these are. Now I can actually go into those specific steps and begin to edit them. If it's different code snippets I need to add, adjusting any of the existing code, any of the actual screenshots or verbiage here, as soon as I start to change, it will give it the ability for me to save this as a new step. And what happens then, close that out, is it's going to build that as a custom step for us to be able to go and pull through at any time. So now I've built a custom step in this lab, making it a completely custom lab. Again, this is a pretty simplified example, but you can go and get more, more granular and build out really, really robust labs that are reflective of your stack and make those available for people to go and take. We do train one of the top 3 cloud providers on their own tech. They're building custom labs, and they're using that as an ability to go in and measure how well their staff are able to do it from a practitioner level standpoint. So they get those demonstrable skills, and then they are using that to kind of project how many tickets, support tickets a month they should be able to handle, and through how that feeds into their skill profile score. So that's just one example of many that we have. The last thing I want to show you on these is you saw what the learning paths look like. And again, same scenario here. I can create it from scratch, meaning I'm pulling from all the content Cloud Academy has, plus everything that I've actually put in myself. or I can start, and this is a more likely scenario, depending on how advanced you are with your rollout. I could start with actually putting, cloning a learning path that's available. So I'll just pick this one here. Again, I can adjust the title to make it custom for me. You'll see that I can actually update any of this information. It fills it out. I showed you in the training library or the content library where you can pick custom nodes for that to live in. So I have the ability to do that. And now as I go into this next step, it's pre-populated all this content. So you saw all those nice pretty tiles in the front end. This is the back end, what everything looks like. So let's say now I did want to put in my content that I've put in there. I've built a custom lab. I put in a custom resource. So I got my lab here, my resource. Again, I'm just picking random things here. And then my exam that's going to go after that. So with a few clicks, I'm adding in and making this, specific to my organization. I can come in and take things out, and I can begin to move these around, wherever I may want them in that learning path. And once I save and publish this, it's then available for my employees to go in and take as they need to, and I can assign it out in training plans too. So once you've actually done this, you can tie skill objectives to it, save it, and then publish that. And once it's published, you can actually pick, where you want it to live. You can pick if you want it to be available for your entire organization or relevant to teams too. So you've got the ability to kind of control who can see it. It's unique to your instance. No other company on Cloud Academy can see it, but if you wanted to just restrict that to certain teams, you have the ability to do that as well. So again, a lot of use cases for Content Engine, exciting stuff. I love working with our customers on that. And we've seen a lot of great use cases come out of that. So that's everything I wanted to show you from a demo perspective. What I want to do now is see if there's any questions that have come up, and I'm happy to field those. Give me a second here to look. It looks like we just have the one question. It's asking what constitutes an enterprise account, which is great. Enterprise is really, it can start with anything over 2 or more. When you're looking at an enterprise, we have companies where we've got 10 people on an account. I mentioned that you can do it for anything over 2 or over, but we work with companies, and our CS team works with companies that have 10 people on account, all the way up to 25,000 people on there. So it really runs the gamut. Enterprise just means that it's 1 or 2 or more people. That you want to be able to implement some of these things. It can be at a team level all the way rolled up into an organization too. So if that is something that you want to have an additional conversation about, we would be happy to discuss the logistics and kind of see if this would be a good fit. But that's a great question. Just a reminder, kind of housekeeping things here. You're actually going to have an end of webinar survey. We'd love for you to go in and take a chance to fill that out if you can. In addition, if you want access to this, you're going to have the recording to be able to go into our webinars page and be able to have access to this after. So if you want to share that with anyone, feel free to do that. We are going to do these live over the next several weeks. So you could also point someone. You'll see all the upcoming webinars there as well. We're very much appreciative. I'm grateful for you joining me for a little bit to learn about Cloud Academy. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. We can certainly discuss these things with you and answer any questions that you have, take you through a live demo or other people in your organization that may want to see it too. But again, I'm very grateful for your time. I appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your day to kind of see what Cloud Academy is all about. And we'd certainly hope to hear from you soon. I hope you all stay safe, stay well, and enjoy the holiday season. Take care.